Hi, I'm Manny Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Scorpio for July 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blogs that help you to most maximize these transits, as well as tons of other astrology and other blogs. If you would like to learn astrology with me, I may still have a couple of slots left in my Astrology Apprenticeship program, which you can also see at anniehelpsyou.com. So, what's going on in July? We've got 2 eclipses. We've got Jupiter going direct. We have Uranus continuing this energy in Taurus, which is very relevant for you because it opposes the sign of Scorpio. So we're going to talk about that. We have Mars still in retrograde. Mars is one of your rulers, so this is really relevant for you. And we have another Mercury retrograde. So we've got a very busy month astrologically, so we're just going to break down this information and see what we can do here to help you out to make the most of these transits. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is this energy of awakening to your true self. That's what I'm calling the theme of this month for Scorpio. So there are short-term and long-term transits at play trying to awaken you to your truest self. Now, true, this is a mission and this is an experience for everybody. This, all people here doing conscious work, living consciously, trying to. This is a theme for everyone, but there's a special focus for Scorpio, and I'm going to talk about why. One of the things that is going on is there has been this eclipse cycle that has been accentuating some polarities in your chart. So from the beginning of 2017 through probably mid-2019, we'll say, because the last eclipses in 2019 are earlier in the year, but they have a plus 6 months or so influence, okay? So over the course of 2.5 years, you've been having this space of home versus work, your emotional inner world and your world, you outside in the world, your place in the world. That polarity, and the polarity of how you express yourself, and in small ways and in big ways, and how you connect to the greater picture. Okay, so your mundane things reaching out into your big picture things. Okay, so we've got this eclipse cycle that is continuing. We've got a lunar eclipse. Well, actually, let me go in order. There are 3 eclipses this summer, and for y'all down under for this winter for you. There's the first eclipse on July 12th, which is a solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. I talk about the implications for that for Scorpio in the June report. So if you look up Annie Botticelli and then June 2018, it might actually for a while come on right after this video. I go into that eclipse manifestation there. But just in general, the Cancer energy is a trine, is a beautiful angle to Scorpio energy. So in general, that's going to be very supportive. The lunar eclipse is at 4, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius, and that's on July 27th. That's the one we're going to focus on for this month to see where it manifests for you. And then the third eclipse, which is in August, I'll talk about where that's going to hit for Scorpios in the August report. Okay, so between these 3 reports, we're going to cover all of this. Eclipses bring dramatic endings, sometimes triumphant fruition. It can bring drama, it can bring crisis, it can bring endings that are wanted, it can bring endings that are not wanted. It can find us saying goodbye to people or things that we don't want to say goodbye to, or it can be bringing things in a big way for things that we've been working on. So, in general, the lunar eclipses tend to end something or bring something to this very major culmination. So, and at bare minimum, it brings a lot of power into the place where it hits in the chart. So for all Scorpios, you're going to experience this in the 3rd house. The 3rd house is the house of communication and transportation. So how you move your body to places, your mobility in general, your cars, your boats, whatever, your communication devices, anything that has to do with you communicating with other people, your method of communication. So something involving communication or transportation or siblings or other relatives that aren't your parents or kids, although there could be some involvement with your parents and kids too, But in general, this third house energy doesn't relate to them, but you have other things in your chart that could bring those family members into the picture. So anyone in the family is kind of open for this. There could be something notable that occurs with a family member. And this could have to do with something that happens as far as like a crisis, or this can be a major manifestation, or it can be both. One caution that I want to give here, whenever I see a lunar eclipse happen in the third house, I have to give you my talk on being more careful when you're moving your body around, when you're driving. If you're still texting while you're driving or looking at your phone while you're driving, don't tell me about it, because as you've seen with my reports, I'm pretty laid back about most things, but I have issues with with people doing that. So if you do it, don't tell me. But this is a time to not do that, not just because I think it's ridiculous that people do it, but because this is your sector of moving around, and there's more of a chance that you'll have a negative consequence from not paying attention when you're driving or riding your bike. If you're texting while you're on your bike, if you're walking and texting and not looking, the odds are more increased for you to have something negative happen to your mobility or your car or something like that, okay? Don't be afraid. This isn't to foster fear. This is to foster awareness, okay? This could be a great time for you to break the habit of doing this, okay? But either way, be extra careful, especially between, like June, July, August, when this aspect is most active. You want to just be more careful with your anything having to do with your cars or communication devices. I hear a lot of people say, oh gosh, I dropped my phone in the water at this time or whatever, and people do that all the time, right? But the odds are increased that something would happen to your phone. So to be proactive, you can take a pledge of no texting while driving. You can make sure that you have windshield insurance on your car. Often this doesn't cost more money. I learned this the hard way because when I had eclipses hitting in this house, which is part of how I learned about this, I had 3 things happen to my car, which I don't usually have those things happen, all happened in a row around the energy of these eclipses. And I learned that if you call ahead for your insurance to have a windshield or glass inspection, then you can have a waiver, not a waiver, like a deduction, what do you call it, a deductible waiver. So usually there's like $500 or $1,000 or more, which you just have to pay outright for the glass damage. But if you ahead of time will do this, you might not have to have a deductible. So like things like this, thinking ahead, getting things sorted out with your insurance, getting things, if you don't have insurance on your phone, or getting a protective case on your phone, on the back of it, on the front of it, a waterproof thing, things like this that you can do to further protect yourself will be very, very, very prudent at this time, okay? So I had to give you that talk because my conscience wouldn't be clear if I didn't. Now, with all of that being said, you could have something come to fruition involving that. You could wind up having a device or a mode of transportation come to you. I don't recommend you going out to do that purposely unless it just happens to fall in your lap, because Mercury is going to be retrograde, Mars is retrograde, Mars rules metal, but you can definitely look for a possible upgrade in communication or transportation, mobility. You could also heal something that was keeping you immobile, so something physically. Okay, so we've got that going on. Then we've got Uranus in Taurus. So this is a very important time when Uranus has moved into Taurus. This sign change for Uranus only happens around every 7 years, and it brings major global consequences for better and worse. I talked about in the May report that you could see more activity as far as weather or earth changes. Earth changes that we have been seeing going on, like the volcano activity in different places in the world, is definitely related to Uranus and Taurus. So these types of things will be happening more as Uranus gets deeper into the energy of Taurus. But on the higher end of the spectrum, the better manifestations, we can also have massive improvements in technology and anything having to do with how we live materially and living sustainably. Massive improvements with living sustainably is definitely going to be part of this too. But the reason why this is specifically important for Scorpio is because the sign of Taurus opposes the sign of Scorpio. They're in a polarity. And when you have Uranus moving through every degree of Taurus, it's at some point in these next 7 years going to be opposing your Scorpio placement. So if you are early in the sign, if you're the first few days of the sign, we'll say the first few degrees of the sign, you're having an opposition with Uranus and your placement right now. Oppositions, especially with outer planets, can be very, very intense. They can feel like you're getting drawn and quartered in the square. It's a terrible imagery, but that's the feeling that you get sometimes from these oppositions, because one thing is pulling this way and one thing is pulling this way. Now, one of the things that is a good outcome of this being torn is that you can have more motivation to find the balance and transcend the polarity. Okay, so looking for balance. So Uranus is opposing the way that you thought you were. If it's your rising sign, it's opposing this energy of what you put out into the world, the image that people have of you. If it's your sun, it's your vitality, it's how you burn bright. You know, so this force is coming to oppose that, either now or in the future. So that's a really big deal. And the more Scorpio planets you have, the more Uranus is going to oppose each of those planets. It's going to call things into question. It's going to cause you to step up your game. It's going to cause you to have a chance to reach an even better transcendence, balance point and transcendence point. So that's the good part about it. Okay, so we've got a lot of energy in your sector of work and career, your place out in the world, so you could see a lot of things come to manifestation. As I've mentioned in the previous reports, Mars being retrograde, Mars being one of your rulers, you might find that if you're trying to do something and it's not working out, a keynote of Mars retrograde can be frustration. But it doesn't have to be frustration. It's only going to be frustration if either you, A, have something unresolved as far as anger, resentment, or how you use your energy that has to be worked out, that has to come out, or B, if you are pushing and not watching the signs that are saying stop pushing. If you have Mars retrograde in your natal chart, you might be more productive now than you ever are. But you will know the difference that if it's working for you, if you're trying to do things and they're working out. If you're trying to do things and they're not working out, then stop trying to do them, because Mars is telling you to relax. I think it's a very refreshing time. As I've mentioned before, I have Aries rising, so I'm ruled by Mars as well. And I just plan breaks. From the time the shadow period started, May 11th, I planned myself to not be doing a lot of extra things. And because of that, so far, it's been very pleasant. So that the pre-shadow period for the transit, which started at the end of June, can be just as powerful and relevant as the actual transit. That's why I mentioned it to you. So if you found that you've been lazy, but you've been getting frustrated because you don't know what's wrong with you, that's Mars telling you to just relax. There are a lot of wonderful things that you can figure out in that quiet space. You can figure out solutions to problems when you back off of them some, okay? So you have permission to rest, relax, have recreation, and be the spider, which is what I want to talk more about. So something else that's a big deal that's happening this month, this is happening for everybody, Jupiter is going direct. But why it's especially important for Scorpios is because Jupiter is going direct and it's in your sign. So it's been moving through Scorpio since the end of last year, and now it's been sort of sleeping for the last 4 months. But in the beginning of July, it's going to go direct. So blessings that had started to come in, expansion that had started to come in, momentum that had started to come in, could very well return. Even in the midst of this Mars retrograde, Jupiter going direct and some other factors can bring some major things to fruition this month. Jupiter going direct in your sign means that the major transformation of awakening to your true self that has been activated from this transit is going to become more noticeable again. Okay, so this is going to be true for all of you, but especially if you have your birthday in like that first week or so of the sign. Not the first week or so, the first week or so of November. And if you're anywhere between like 12 and 17 degrees, if you're watching for your rising sign, this is going to most affect you, because when it moves direct, it's going to be sitting right on top of your planets or within close proximity to your placements, Okay, and when Jupiter is sitting on top of your sun or your rising sign, this is a major deal. These are major crossroads. So for the rest of you after the first week, for those of you before the first week of November, Jupiter has done the bigger part of its work with you already, but it still can add things. Remember that Jupiter plants seeds, so if you don't always see manifestations from Jupiter right away, but it plants a bunch of seeds that have the next 12 years of this cycle to grow. Okay, so then the first week is going to be of November will be highlighted, those of you with birthdays there. But then after that, until the end of the year, the rest of you Scorpio placements are going to have Jupiter cross over either your rising sign or your sun sign, whatever you're watching for. And this is very auspicious. This, in general, is a very big deal. And there are lots of major potentials that are sitting here for you. So that's a very special time. And so definitely look for things to start to awaken as far as you blossoming in a new, a bigger and better way. CozyBySweetStarlight.com is my lifestyle blog where I feature my own and up-and-coming bloggers that I'm trying to help bring out into the light. All kinds of fun stuff there. And then I also do monthly horoscopes a month ahead of time. So if you want more information about each of the months for you, you can check out CozyBySweetStarlight.com. If you're a traveler or you intend to travel in these months, you can look at my astrology travel reports at astrologykisstravelbliss.com. Okay, so now I want to go into more details about Mars retrograde, what you should do in there. I also have a separate blog called Your Guide to Mars Retrograde and a video on this. So you can find these, if you search for Annie Botticelli Mars retrograde, all of these things will come up. Mercury is also going to be retrograde in the month of July, so we're going to talk about that and some other dates to look out for and general implications of the eclipses. Now, so the theme of the month for all signs for July 2018 is 2 eclipses equals major transformation. We've been talking about these eclipses. We've got 3 in this cycle. 2 of the eclipses in this cycle are in July. The third one is in August. Whenever it's eclipse time, drastic changes, expected and unexpected new paths open up. Very often there's a complete surprise trajectory change that takes us in a completely different direction. And in some cases it brings to fruition things intended or planned. And sometimes it can shorten the time frame for something that we had originally thought would be further out, where we wake up one day and we had planned something for the future and all of a sudden it's here now. So this eclipse time is a very powerful time. And there are other things going on besides these eclipses. So we're going to talk about these astrological transits to note for July. Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars just turned officially into retrograde at the end of June. I have been talking about this for a long time because it's a very long transit. And there is a period of time before and after a retrograde transit of a personal planet like Mars that is very long, and you start to feel the energies well before the retrograde actually occurs. Okay, so we've been talking about this Mars retrograde energy. We started feeling it in May, it officially turned in June, and now in July, we are fully into Mars retrograde. So this Mars retrograde is bringing permission to rest and to focus on relaxation and recreation, and what I like to call comfortable productivity. It's not that you can't get anything done in Mars retrograde. You absolutely can. You just have to follow the cues. It's not a time to be over-ambitious unless, of course, if you have Mars retrograde at birth, sometimes you can get more done during this transit than you do normally. But you would know it, because if you're trying to do something and it's working out and it's flowing really easily and you're not having roadblocks and you're not having frustrations, then that's totally fine. When you need to take the cue to rest and back off is when you're pushing and it's not working out the way that you wanted it to. So instead of just continuing to push, taking a step back is what is well indicated when Mars is in retrograde. So to second this notion, we have other astrological forces that are saying the same thing. Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that's going to be on July 25th. And once that happens, it's going to further bring the past back into the present. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts early in July. So essentially the whole month is very much in this energy of things coming up from the past. So opportunities from the past, ideas from the past, projects from the past are all very much indicated to focus on at this time. At the same time as all of this energy is going on, we have the eclipses happening, and the eclipses may bring change and opportunities to act on, whether you want them or are ready for them or not, or maybe you are. But since there's so much energy pointing towards the past, a lot of times it will be things from the past finally coming to fruition now. So it's totally fine to say yes to the things that come to you. You just want to have an awareness of maybe not having all of the information, maybe the project being different or turning out different than you think. And the big key here is to be the spider. Okay, the eclipses and the retrogrades both tell us the same story, which is be the spider. So spiders weave their web and they wait for the food to come to them. So that's the kind of time that this July energy is really bringing. It's bringing this just chilling out and waiting and seeing what comes to you, and then you can work with what comes to you as it comes. Okay, so we've also got 5 trines this month. Trines are the most wonderful harmonious aspect in astrology. So I'm going to give you some dates to watch here. Now, the dates that I'm going to list, I'm going to go into some detail about the transits, but if you'd like more detail about the transits I'm talking about or transits that I'm not talking about that are also occurring, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and you'll receive monthly written reports a month before the relevant time. If you already signed up for my newsletter and you're not receiving my reports, they're either going into spam, promotions, social, or events folders in your email. So look for them in there and then transfer them into your inbox so that you get my mailings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the dates to note. The first one, actually, I'm going to just list these sweet spot dates. They're trines, they're beautiful aspects where things can gel together in a wonderful way, where there's just little sweet spots. So in the days around July 5th, July 8th, July 11th, July 13th and 14th, July 25th, we're having this beautiful aspect of trines on all of those days. So look out for little boosts at that time. The next date to note is July 12th, and that is this partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So for everyone, every sign, this can bring new things involving home, family, houses, real estate, anything involving home. If you're an architect, it could involve your work. You know, anything that involves homes or housing or family or childhood or psychology, childhood psychology especially. All of these things are very high on the list of potential manifestations from this solar eclipse energy. So in the days around July 12th, you'll especially feel this eclipse energy, but remember that you could have gotten news about this manifestation that may come in as soon as May, because we've got like 6 to even sometimes 8 weeks ahead of time is when pieces of the story start coming in for these eclipses, okay? But that is a date to note. I always try to avoid doing anything important on the eclipse dates. You just kind of want to try to be available for whatever shows up. On July 27th, the second eclipse is a total lunar eclipse, and this one is at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. So here we'll see a lot of activity along the lines of friends, friendships, acquaintances, social media, groups, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, large organizations, anything having to do with innovation or technology. So look for those things. And again, this stuff could come in months before or months after. We're moving along a continuum with these eclipses, but that's on July 27th is when the actual event occurs. Okay, so some dates to look out for that could bring some challenges. And you'll notice that some of the dates I listed for the trines that have some sweet spots, there are also some challenging aspects on those dates. So you may feel them on the same day, something positive happening, something challenging happening, or you may feel one day it's a little pocket of a sweet spot and the next day is a little bit of a challenge. It's always hard to be black and white about how these energies are going to manifest, but I just want to list them so that you can be aware. On the 5th of July, on the 9th, on the 24th, on the 25th, and on the 26th and 27th, we've got challenging aspects on those dates. We have some squares, we have some oppositions, and these bring pressure to change, basically, or put pressure on viewpoints or ways things have been done. You know, they're basically, I describe them as the pressure. Well, the squares are the pressure that creates the diamond. So sometimes if we have a diamond that we want to create in our lives, or a vision for this diamond, we have to do something about it. And if we're not doing something about it, or we're not sure what to do, this pressure comes in the form of this square. And it either shows us what we have to do or makes us fed up so that we actually take action. So you might see that energy show up this month from those squares. The oppositions bring overstimulation. Overstimulation is when there's a lot of busyness in opposing forces in our lives. So we've got an opposition in Leo and Aquarius on the 5th, so that could have to do with your own creativity versus the group, like your own flow versus the group flow. And then we've got another opposition on the 24th with Venus and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces. So this can be a lot of push and pull about the seen world and the unseen world, the logical world and the abstract world, and the intuitive world. You know, so you'll see some overstimulation with trying to balance being in multiple dimensions at once. Okay, so the things to note for this month: lots of sweet spots, some challenging points, and definitely massive opportunities for change, massive opportunities for things coming to fruition. The keynote here is to try to not plan too much unless you're very intuitively directed, or unless it comes to you to be planned for that time, and that's out of your hands. And if something comes to you, then it's definitely fine to say yes to it. Just be aware that there may be changes that are continuing to happen over the rest of the retrogrades, and just to navigate as consciously as possible, leaving as much flexibility in your arrangements as possible. Mars retrograde is continuing this energy of relaxing, taking vacations, taking trips, doing nothing. And in that space of doing nothing, this is one of the most magical things that I love about retrograde. So people say, well, you can't do anything in retrogrades, and it's totally not true. It's just not a time to push. It's not a time to go against the tides. But what you can do, I always call it the shavasana of transits, because in that few minutes of shavasana at the end of a yoga practice, that integration, that quiet time is when the insights come, when the clarity comes, when the important pieces come, when the breakthroughs come. So this Mars retrograde, this month of July, is like this shavasana point where from that quiet space, pure genius can pop in and change everything. So these are the things that are most on my mind for the month of July. If you would love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program. I also have lots of other cool educational offerings on my site, both to change your vocation or just for your self-development and growth. I have my Astaria School of Practical Magic, which is a really fun way to work with the unseen realms and bring them into the seen realms. Definitely check out my hubby's offerings, BR Newman, at IAMHELIOS.com, IamHelios.com. He's got lots of sound frequencies that help to balance out challenging transits and also help to empower you during the transits that we have going on. So definitely check his site out. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.